Well, here we are, disc season 5, disc 5, episode 217. I hope you've been watching all the episodes with me. We have 217, 218, 219, and 220 on this disc. We will be covering them all. And I want you to say happy 4th of July, a little late, but it's here, so let's talk. So, and this is also Federation Day, so that's a good thing too, I guess. So, we are talking about the Outcast, where Riker once again falls in love once again, and it's always frustrating because we know how Riker ends up and we know how Riker started. Riker started with Troi. Before the show even aired, they had had a relationship. Because they say in the first episode that they decided not to continue their relationship because he was going to be her superior. Just like in the military, you don't have relationships with your subordinates. And this whole thing, he's always testing the waters with other people, and she's gonna do something with Worf soon, and it's just frustrating as all hell. It really is. I hate the fact that and then the writers hinted all the time at the Troy and Riker thing, all the time. It's just like, oh, this is sci-fi. Don't make the whole thing about romance. Although, again, this has been a very peachy season. Several suicide issues. Now we're doing relationship, not relationship. A bias against a person, uh, race, creed, color, sexual orientation. I think it's all pretty much covered by this episode. So, anyways, it's nice to meet you. I'm Christina, Kristina. This is the D. Louise book series where we read books and talk about books. No special effects here, nothing special going on here. If I could play the episode and talk about it as it goes through, I would do it. But of course, there's copyright issues and stuff like that. So I hope that you would hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Although according to my analytics, you've already clicked off, so you're not even here. I'm just talking to myself. So, anyways, let's get started with the episode. We start out with Captain's Log, Stardate 45614.6. We have been contacted by an Andronus race called the Janal to investigate the mysterious disappearance of one of their shuttlecraft. So they're on board the bridge, and Data says, Captain, we are approaching the designated coordinates. Picard says, on screen, long range scan. Mr. Data. Data says, sensors find no evidence of the shuttle anywhere within the star system. Soren says that's her. It couldn't have traveled outside the system. Riker says, Mr. Data, configure high resolution sweep radius 1 million kilometers. Check for any debris. Data says, scan shows no debris within the radius field. One of the other people says, I don't understand. A shuttle doesn't simply vanish. Soren says, there has to be an explanation. Data says, Captain, I'm detecting an unusual reading. It appears to be a neutrino emission with no viable source. Picard says, explanation. Data says, I have none, sir. I recommend we launch a probe. Picard says, make it so. Worf says, probe is launched. Data says, sensors show no evidence of unusual phenomena, and the probe disappears. Data says, the probe is no longer transmitting. Soren said, what happened? Where did it go? And then we go to the opening credits. Okay, so then we get another voiceover from the captain. Captain's log supplemental. The sudden disappearance of our probe suggests that we may have found the first instance of what is called null space, an anomaly which until now had been only theoretical. Commander Riker has been working around the clock with a team of Janal specialists to formalize this hypothesis. They're in the Janal planet. And Soren says, during the creation of a star system, when clouds of interstellar dust and gas coalesce turbulent regions of magnetic and gravitational fields may develop. It contains if certain conditions occur, these fields can condense into abnormal pockets of space. Riker says, we think your system contains one of these null pockets. If we're right, the pocket would absorb electrical magnetic energy from anything that entered it. Soren says, like a shuttlecraft. Riker says, or a probe, making them powerless. Soren says, but outside the pocket, all energy is bent around it, making it naturally cloaked. That's why we can't see it and our senses cannot read it. Is the shuttle still there? Nor asks. We think so, Riker says. The shuttle probably won't be able to sustain energy, but other than that, it won't be damaged. Soren says, since our shuttles carry plaster-based backup systems, we think life support would sustain for as long as 10 days. Then perhaps our crew has survived. Riker says, we can send one of our own shuttles in, but its energy would also be absorbed. Our chief engineer is working on a way to maintain the power reserves long enough to rescue the crew. Noah says, Commander, we're grateful for your help. Whatever resources we can provide are yours. And everybody leaves the meeting. And then he has a private talk. So then Riker and Soren have a private talk. I've been thinking when time comes, I would like to pilot the shuttle. She says, I'm using it. Riker says, it's a Starfleet craft. Soren says, I cannot ask you to put yourself in danger to rescue our crew. Riker says, you can't pilot a shuttle you're not familiar with. She says, I happen to be a good pilot. Riker says, I happen to be a good pilot too. I know my way around the shuttle, so what if we team up? Soren says, when can we go over the shuttle flight operations? Riker says, right now. So, first they stop outside the shuttlecraft. I skipped that part. And Soren says, is this the one? Riker says, this is it. Short-range craft, two 250 millicochrane warp engines. Soren says, looks like microfusion thrusters. Riker says, right. Soren says, armament none usually. This one has been fitted with two Type 4 phaser emitters. We usually use those to chart the null space. Chart it. Mr. LaForge wants to get an idea of the size of the pocket. He thinks the rate of energy absorption is linked to its size. Soren says, I'm not sure how we go about mapping something we can't see. Riker says, well, that's where the emitters come in. We shoot out a series of photon pulses into the pocket and we chart where each one disappears. From that, we should be able to get a fairly complete outline. And Soren says, let's look at the controls. So they go in the shuttle. Riker says, later we'll try a flight simulation. Right now, let's do a system review. I'll talk you through it. Soren says, let me try. Propulsion system, transfer conduits. Where's the schematic reactor assembly? Oh, there it is. Engine nacelles. There's nothing unfamiliar. Navigational deflector, defrunted gravitation proton source generators. Riker says, you handle these controls like you grew up in a shuttle. Soren says, I did. My parents were pilots. I was flying with them before I could walk. As soon as I was old enough, I entered flight school. Crite was my instructor. He had a good student. He, Commander? There's no he or she in a species without gender. Riker says, okay, for 2 days I've been trying to construct sentences without personal pronouns. Now I give up. What should I use? It to us? That's rude. We use a pronoun which is neutral. I do not think there's really a translation. Then I'll just have to muddle through. So forgive me if I stray he or she flips, okay? Soren says, okay, well, the systems review, I don't see any problems. What's next? Riker says, lunch. So, of all the delicacies he could give her, he gives her pea soup. Ugh. It's not served cold, too, by the way. Maybe not. I know turtle soup is so. I don't know. Just yuck. I don't know. Some steak, some potato, some tacos, uh, chicken, parmesan. Some really nice. He chooses pea soup? Really? So, Soren says, what is it? He says, split pea soup, my father's recipe. I had it programmed into the replicators. Well, Soren says, unusual, but I think I like it. Riker says, it's healthy, helps to keep you warm on cold Alaskan nights. We prefer to stay warm by sleeping with a friend. Riker says, I see. Not to mate, just to sleep together for warmth. Riker says, still sounds better than pea soup. Soren says, we are puzzling to you, aren't we? Riker says, a little. It's hard to grasp the idea of no gender. It's just as hard for us to understand the strange division in your species, male and females. You are male. Tell me about males. What makes it you different from females? Snips and snails and puppy dog tails, Riker says. Soren says, you have tails? It's an old nursery rhyme. Girls are made from sugar and spice, and boys are made from snips and snails. Soren says, that makes it sound better to be female. It's an old-fashioned way of looking at sexes, not to say that there's no real difference between them. Physically, men are bigger, stronger in the upper body. We have sexual organs men can't bear young. Soren says, what about feelings or emotional attitudes? Are they different? Most people think so, but that's kind of a question that would take a lifetime to answer. Let me ask you, what's it like on a planet where the people have no gender? I'm afraid I don't understand. Well, who leads when you dance, if you dance? We do, and whoever's taller leads. Without the battle of the sexes, you probably don't have as many arguments. Soren says, just because we don't have gender doesn't mean we don't have conflict. We're strong-minded, we love a good fight. Riker says, the sound of it, there's not much difference between our species. Maybe not, but what kind of woman do you find attractive? And I'm like, really? Do we need all this stuff? Do we need all this stuff in the middle of a sci-fi episode? Really? Do we really? You know, I think, the original Star Trek did it with the split face, the black and the white, with the racist issue. I think sometimes that goes over better when trying to prove a point that it's wrong or right or however a society wants to handle their stuff. But I think Riker falling, it's just, really, really, why is it always Riker? And why does he, every time he meets one of these ladies, he sees forever, and then it's only a 5-minute thing. You know it's only for the episode. You know the person's not sticking around. You know it's going to end badly, or it's going to end, and he's going to go back to dancing with Troi. I mean, come on, would you stop it with this stuff? I hated it when it happened. I hate it now. Riker says, I like one, he says, I like the one who's intelligent and sure of herself, who I can talk with and get something back. But the most important thing is she laughs at my jokes, so Soren smiled. Tell me, is that the kind of woman that all males prefer? Riker says, not all. Some quiet, demure, others prefer a lot of energy. Some only respond to physical attractiveness. Others couldn't care less. There are no rules. Soren says, you make it sound very complex. Riker says, believe me, it is. Soren says, well, perhaps it's the complexity which makes differences in the sexes so interesting. And then her boss comes by. So her boss comes by. Clyde says, good evening, Commander. Riker says, good evening. Soren says, please take my place, Clyde. I have to be going. Thank you for going over the flight protocols, Commander. It was very helpful. And she splits and the scene ends. So then we get another captain's voiceover. Captain's log sentimental. Commander Riker and the Janal pilot have set out to chart the null space pocket. If they are successful, we can then proceed with a rescue attempt. So then they're back on the shuttlecraft. Soren says, I've illuminated the Delta 4 grid map. We'll start there and expand. Riker says, stand by, forward phaser array. Soren says, pulse vanished at 4.2 by 0.3. Riker's firing second burst. Soren says, Delta 4.4 by 0.5. Riker says, this is working. Initiating computer task handoff. Soren, Commander, tell me about your sexual organs. Riker's like, huh? Soren, is that an uncomfortable subject for humans? Riker says no, but it doesn't tend to be a topic of casual conversation. Soren says, I'm interested in your mating practices. What is involved with the two sexes? Correcting course 02110. Mating? Right, well, it's pretty simple. Men inseminate the women, women carry the baby. Soren says our fetuses are incubated in fibrous tanks which the parents inseminate. From what we know of other species, our method is less risky and less painful. And less enjoyable, Riker says. Less enjoyable, Soren says. Really, do we need to talk about this stuff on a family show? It's uncomfortable to watch, and it's a really awkward thing. I think I'd be comfortable with anything else if they didn't have to talk about sex, if they were talking about race or bias issues or prejudice issues. I think but because it was Riker, because they wanted tension, I guess they had to choose sex as the topic. And like I said before, we know this is just a one episode thing, and he's willing to risk all for her for this one thing. And then we know he gets back with Troi. And I hate the fact that there's going to be another one, and there's going to be another one. And there's been ones in the past. Riker has gotten involved with ladies in the past, too. Remember the lady with the statue? They even tried to throw in a Picard, too, with the statue. And all the stuff that happened on Risa and stuff like that. But can we do some more sci-fi stuff? So Riker says for humans, the sexual acts brings closeness and intimacy. It can be a very pleasurable experience. Inseminating a husk, that's just the last step. Mating is a long ritual for us, full of variety and invention. I assure you, it's extremely pleasurable. Riker says, I'm picking up neutron emission from within the null space. Soren says, that may be coming from our shuttle. I'll note these coordinates. Soren says, I wonder, what? If a human and a Janelle would be sexually compatible. Riker says, I don't know. Soren, of course it would never be permitted. Why not? The idea of gender is offensive to my people. You see, long ago we had two sexes as you do, but we evolved into a higher form. I don't mean to sound insulting, but on my planet we have been taught that gender is primitive. Primitive, Riker says? Less involved, maybe so, but sometimes there's a lot to be said for an experience that's primitive. Soren says Delta 5 grid map is fully plotted. Riker says adjusting course 029 Mark 0. The port engine's down, reducing power in the starboard nacelle. Riker says that's not enough. I have to activate the maneuvering thrusters. Thrusters aren't responding. Try reroute the firing sequence. Inertial dampeners are falling. Hang on. Soren falls down. She hits her head. She gets a little bit of a concussion. They beam back to the Enterprise. So then they're in sick bay, and Dr. Crusher says it's a mild concussion. You're going to be fine. This will reduce the inflammation. Soren says, Doctor, you are female. Dr. Crusher says, yes. Soren says, forgive me, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm curious. What's it like? Crusher says, well, it's just the way I am. I never really thought about it, what it's like. Soren says, I notice you tend to have longer hair, and you arrange it more elaborately, and you apply color to your bodies. Crusher says, color? You put color on your mouth and your eyes and your cheeks and your fingernails. The men don't. Crusher says that's true. Soren says it's up to women to attract men. Oh no, men want to be attractive too. Believe me, they just do it differently. No color, Crusher says. They like to pretend they're not doing anything to attract a woman, even when it's the most important thing on their mind. Soren says, this is very confusing. Then are women considered more superior or men? Neither. In the past, women were often considered weak and inferior, but that hasn't been true for a long time. Then Riker comes in. Dr. Crusher tells him, your co-pilot is going to be fine. The injury was minor. Riker says, I'm glad to hear it. Soren, I'm afraid you're not rid of me yet, Commander. I will be able to complete the mission. Riker says, glad you feel better. Soren says, what happened? We made the shuttle go into a spin. What made the shuttle go into a spin? Riker says, the port nacelle must have nipped one of the protrusions from enough power to get ourselves out of there. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. My cat helped me with the printer this morning. So my pages are out of order. Must have nipped the null pocket and shut it down. Soren, are we still on schedule then? Riker says, that depends on how you're doing. Soren says, I'm fine. We should go check the port engine. Riker says, well, maybe we should get the doctor's opinion. Doctor? Crusher says, I don't see any problem, but if you feel any symptoms, headache, dizziness, come back. Soren says, you have my word. Now, We're having our annual poker game, and I want to know why Riker and LaForge are not here. It's just Troi, Dr. Crusher, Data, and Worf. Troi says, "All right, this game is Federation Day. What is that?" Troi said, "Well, the Federation was founded on 2161, so two sixes and aces are wild." Worf says, "That's a woman's game." Troi says, "Oh, why's that?" "All those wild cards, they support a weak hand. A man's game has no wild cards." Dr. Crusher says, "Let me get this straight. Are you saying it's a woman's game because women are weak and need more help?" Worf says, "Yes. And just this afternoon, I was insisting to one of the Janal that those attitudes were but a distant memory." Worf said, "The Janal, they bother me." Troi says, "Why, Worf? They do. They're all alike. No males, no females." Well, Troi says, "Well, I'm sure we're just as strange to them." Crusher says, "Well, one of them seems to be overcoming the differences, at least in regards to one of us." Worf says, "What are you saying, Doctor?" Crusher says, "I could be wrong, but I get the definite impression that Soren is attracted to Commander Riker." Worf says, "A human in Janal? Impossible." Data says, "Why?" Troi says, "Good question. With all these wild cards," Worf says, "it's difficult to know exactly what is in my hand. However, I will open with 50. So then we're back on the shuttlecraft, and they're supposed to be working on some stuff here. The portal transfer array is in. When we get the null space, we'll need to initialize it before we can transport the Janelle crew to the shuttle. But there should be enough power left to beam all of us back to the Enterprise. Soren said, "Is the buffer field generator installed?" Riker says, "Not yet. Geordi thinks that'll be ready at 0800 hours tomorrow. But before that, we should see if we can get the balance this engine. Can you access the starboard manifold thrust?" And she crawls under the control panel and she starts messing with stuff. And then she has this long speech to him about her feelings, about coming out of the closet, proverbially, staying hidden in the closet, proverbially. She has all these feelings. She lives a secret. Um, it's just a very long thing. She talks about children being bullied because they were different, and there's this whole thing, and it's uncomfortable. Yes, we know it still exists today. The fact that it's going to exist in this century is sad. The fact that someone decides to bully someone else, and there's a comic going on that has that situation too, and the kid's doing it alone. He's bullying another kid alone. So maybe this other kid doesn't have any friends and he decides to take it out on the little kid. Maybe he should try being friends with the little kid, maybe get together, form a bond of some kind instead of picking on him. He chooses to act the superior person and put down the little person. No one should be put down. Everybody should be able to be themselves when they want to be themselves. But apparently in her culture, and our culture too, there's tons and tons and tons and tons of biases. People hate people just because they can hate people. It's the way they grew up. They learn this stuff from their parents and their environment. If you lived in a neutral environment, you would be neutral to everybody. You'd be friends with everybody. But the fact that if you grow up in a society where your parents have specific views about specific people, and your environment, your little town, your little school, your little society all have the same views, then you're probably going to grow up with those views too. And it's taught. Biasm and racism is taught by the surroundings in your environment. And that's very, very sad because some people hate people just because of their color. They could be good, they could be a pilot, they could be a surgeon, they could be a rock star, they could be anything in the entire world. But this little person, regardless of who they are, they could be a fucking billionaire. But just because someone's a different color or a different race or a different eye color, didn't we have that in my Black Dagger Brotherhood books? We're doing the Black Dagger Brotherhood by J.R. Ward. And in this particular book, the person was shunned by his family because he had two different color eyes. Just because he had two different color eyes, his family did not love him. They shunned him. They treated him like an it. Even though he loved them, he had done nothing wrong. He was just born to them, and his family, because of their societal influences, shunned their child and chose to praise and pedigree a nephew instead. And then the nephew comes back and kills them all. So I wasn't sad for these people. I was not sad at all because they got their just desserts. Their son, their person of their own flesh and blood, they shunned, they hated him, they treated him very poorly, they never showed him any affection in the world just because he had two different color eyes. And the nephew who got changed over came back and slaughtered them all. And the kid with two eyes lived. And his parents died. I think I would have felt more comfortable with something like that, or color or something. But all this talk about sex, this was a family show. Although in today's world, I guess it's more appropriate because this banning books situation. If a kid has this family situation and wants to read about it, they should be able to read about anything they want to read about. They should be able to talk about anything with their parents and counselors and friends that they want to talk about. No one should tell them that a topic is taboo. They should be able to read any book they want. The book should not be banned. Maybe it's not age appropriate at 5 or 6, but it might be appropriate at 12 or 13 or 14. But so go to Amazon and buy it. So they have this big mushy conversation. So then we're back on the bridge. Picard says, "How long to Felon system, Mr. Data?" Data says, "Warp 6." Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Lord. My papers are out of sick bay. All right. So okay, here we go. LaForge says, "That's it, Commander. Everything checks out. The energy buffer is installed and functioning. I estimated to reduce the power drain to your systems by 40%. Riker says, "Any guess how long we'll have?" LaForge says, "Let's just say we don't want to waste any time once you get in there. You'll have to give him continuous readouts on energy consumption. I can't even predict if the drain will be at constant rate." Soren says, "I understand." LaForge says, "Then that's it, Commander. I'll monitor you as far as I can, but once you get inside the packet, you're on your own. Enough power." All right. I am missing a page. Here it is. I told you my cat helped me. Riker says, "We don't have any idea what condition the shuttle crew is in, so we'll all beam directly to sickbay." LaForge says, "I'll notify Dr. Crusher to be standing by." LaForge, Geordi contacts the bridge. Picard says, "Here." LaForge says, "We're ready to initiate shuttle pre-launch." Data says, Picard says, "Proceed, Mr. Data." Data says, "Initiating pre-launch sequence." Riker says, "Request flight clearance." Data says, "Clearance is granted. The shuttle is underway, sir." Picard says, "Good hunting, Commander." Riker says, "See you for dinner, sir." And then we're back on the shuttle bay. Okay, so then we're back on the shuttle. Soren says, "Heading confirmed. Energy readings are normal with power reserve stabilized at 100%. Riker says, "Acknowledge. It's dead ahead approximately 50 kilometers. Riker says, "Riker to Enterprise, we're taking her in." And they disappear into the null. Riker says, "Riker to Enterprise, Riker to Enterprise." They can't hear them. Power reserves are down to 84%. Riker says, "Look," and they show the other shuttle. They try to hail it. They can't hail it. They try to beam the guys aboard. It doesn't work. Their power reserves drop. So they transfer all life support and everything to the shuttle thing. And they beam the two bodies onto the shuttle. And then they put all their life support and everything else onto the shuttle, and they beam everybody over to the Enterprise. So they beam over to the Enterprise. Dr. Crusher says they were oxygen deprived. There doesn't seem to be any significant damage, and she treats them. And Krayt thanks her for her help. And Riker says your colleague Soren was very helpful. Krayt invites Riker for dinner. He said he'd be happy to. North says, we'll be eager to get a first-hand report. We should return to the surface. Soren says, I'll see you later tonight, Commander. And they go. So they had their dinner. He hangs out with her in the courtyard. They exchange some little dialogue. They go for a walk through the trees and the shrubbery. And one of the other people see them kiss, and that puts her in great danger. Then he goes and talks to Troi and tells her he found someone. She's going through some stuff that her mother sent her. They belong to one of her ancestors from Earth. It's always nice to go through family memories. She doesn't know who anybody is, but she's enjoying going through all the different stuff that her mother sent her. And she's enjoying going through the pictures and objects and stuff. And Riker comes in. He tells her he met someone. And they have a little nice chat. And how he wants their relationship to stay the same and blah blah blah, and then they kiss. It's a really nice scene. That was my favorite moment of the entire show. Okay, so then Riker goes to see Soren, and she's been taken prisoner or hostage or whatever. She's been taken into court. They have discovered that she has been performing as a female or thinking of herself as a female. It's against their laws. They're going to give her the treatment. Riker comes up and takes all the blame for it. It's all his fault. He did the initiation. She turned him down, blah, blah, blah. Soren decides to stand up for herself, and she takes all the blame and says, it was her idea, and she went after him, and she pursued him. And they are grateful for her revelations in confessing, and they are going to give her treatment. And Riker's not happy with this, so he goes to see Picard. So Riker is talking to Picard. I just can't leave her there. They'll give her these psychokinetic treatments. I don't know what to do. Picard says, well, I could talk to Nor. Perhaps there's a way to work something out. Riker says, sir, their minds are set. They don't want to hear another alternative. Picard says, then I'm not sure there's much that we can do. Riker says, there has to be. My relationship with Soren is not trivial. She's very important to me. It's my fault that this happened. I have to help her. Right, Picard says, interfering in the internal affairs of the Janal is prohibited by the Prime Directive. Riker says, I'm aware of that. Picard says, if you violate it, you may be jeopardizing your career. Starfleet doesn't take these matters lightly, Will. I can't defend you if you go too far. Do you understand that? Riker says, you've made yourself very clear, sir. Picard says, don't risk everything you've worked for. Riker says, thank you, sir. May I be excused? And he's excused. So then Riker's packing a little bit of a bag. He's planning to go down to the planet. Worf comes in. Worf says, Commander, I have the plan for deploying warning buoys around the null space. He says, fine, leave it. I'll look at it later. Yes, sir. Riker says, you're dismissed. And then Worf says, Commander, I'm aware of what transpired on the planet's surface. Are you by any chance considering an unannounced visit? I would like to go with you. Riker says, Lieutenant. Worf says, sir, you are commanding officer. If you order me to stay on board, I will obey. But I ask you not to give that order. A warrior does not let a friend face danger alone. So they go down to the planet together. So they go down to the planet, and she's had the treatment, and she no longer wants him, and she no longer has those feelings. And she's like, bye, nice knowing you. And I just, the fact that he was willing to give up everything for a woman he met 5 minutes ago just didn't fly with me when he has Troi. But I'm always biased. I'm Troi biased. I'm sorry, I'm Troi biased. So we're back on the Enterprise. This is where we end. Picard says, "How long to the failing system, Mr. Data?" Data says, "Warp 6, 53 hours." Picard says, "Commander." Riker says, "Captain." Picard says, "Starfleet has sent a message asking us to proceed to the Phelan system to negotiate a trade agreement." "Yes, sir." "I didn't know when to tell them we will be there. Is our business finished with Janelle? Is our business with Janelle finished?" Riker says, "Finished, sir." Picard says, "Very well, Ensign. Take us out of orbit. Set a course for the Phelan system, warp 6. Aye, sir. Engage." And that's where we end the episode. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit of the Outcast. And I hope you will join us next week for Cause and Effect. And then the week after, the first duty and the cost of living, which you know is very, very high right now. But I hope you hit the like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Recap, I'm doing the best I can. I wish I could play it live so we could talk about it live, but that's just how things are. This episode was uncomfortable that they use sexual orientation, although on Big Brother, it's been a huge topic of conversation the last couple of years. So we've had some non binary people on Big Brother. They're people. They should be treated like people. Who cares? What they want to do with their lives is their own business. They can do anything they want. Everybody can do anything they want. You can do anything you want with your life, your body, your family, whatever. It's all up to you. It's all up to individual choice. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Thank you.